1. This was back in the 2000s when I was studying in university in a small college town. I had an on-campus job working at a small inn that functions like a training hotel for students who majored in hotel and restaurant management program at the university. The inn, mostly staffed by students and a few of the school faculty, was located on campus with dormitories and family housing nearby, and close to the student union. A very small inn with about 10 or so rooms, can't remember exactly. I worked mostly the front desk. After working there some time, I ended up being one of the very few people that the general manager trusts with handling things like money, training new front desk people, doing night auditing, and sometimes checking the work the other night auditors did. As it was a small college town, we have students from nearby cities, or even out of state, visit their kids. It gets busy, especially around graduation time, with parents from out of town staying at the inn. Like most inns and hotels, we offer a complimentary breakfast for guests staying at the inn. The guests get their breakfast tickets along with the key when they check in. This one particular family stayed at the inn. Husband, wife, and a teenager. Their other child was a student who was graduating from the university and was living in the dorms. One day, when I was working the morning shift, the family, heading to breakfast, stopped by the front desk. The wife asked if she can get extra breakfast tickets for her son, the student staying in the dorms, for the duration the family is staying at the inn. I told her very politely that the complimentary breakfast is for guests staying at the inn only. If she wanted breakfast for her son, they can charge it to their room and pay for it when they check out. She kept badgering and reasoning with me, but I just kept telling her sorry, that I couldn't do what she asked, as it is hotel policy. She suddenly changed into a kind of Karen attitude. Back then, the term Karen didn't exist. She asked for my name and then told me that she will report me to management about the incident and that I was being rude to her about it. I gave her my name, confident that the management would side with me on this. I was only doing my job. The lady did make a complaint to the general manager, but she took it a step further and also reported me to the dean of the School of Hotel and Restaurant Management. The school owns and operates the training hotel and inn. I didn't expect that, but I wasn't scared. I was only in the hotel and restaurant management program for a brief time before I changed my major, and as I recall, by the time of this incident I had already changed my major, so I wasn't part of the hotel management school anymore. They kept me on staff as I had been there long enough and the general manager liked me and trusted me, and I had done a consistently good job during my time there. Of course, the general manager and the dean asked about the incident and my side of the story after receiving the complaint. I told them how the lady was trying to rip off the inn by demanding free breakfast, and I had been polite to her the whole time. They believed me and my side of the story. I don't recall exactly what happened afterwards, but I believe they were made to pay for the breakfast for their son, who wasn't staying with them at the inn. I stayed at that job until the School of Hotel and Restaurant Management decided to close down the inn and turned the place into more classrooms for the school. Students were to do their training and internships at real hotels, which there was plenty of around the university campus. It has been 20 years since I started working at that job, and this incident had been in my memory since it happened. During my time working there, this was the only incident that I had with a guest, and the only time a formal complaint was made about me, so it stuck in my head. One of my favorite places to have worked at. 2. So this all starts with a company. I won't say their name, but they're a larger timeshare company. Now this company is probably on the more shady side of timeshares, so they don't really get the best people to manage their hotels. I could write a massive post on just the company, too. Don't get me wrong, there are some amazing managers in this company, but they are few and far between. This company is a bit weird on how they run. They are a mixture of hotel and timeshare. So sometimes we have owners coming in, and sometimes we have guests who are just on regular vacations. I was glorified front desk agent at one of the properties, sent there to learn under the GM to eventually move into a GM role myself. Now, I don't know if I was sent there to replace the current GM or just to move to a different property at the end of the training, but the current GM most certainly thought I was her replacement, which apparently gave her free game to treat me like garbage. The GM was known for being a bit of a character. This post is meant to go over everything she would do as a bit of a rant on my part, so here is the short list. 1. She would change the prices for timeshare owners coming outside of their weeks depending on if she liked them or not. 2. She was notorious for talking about literally anyone behind their backs. 3. When the board members were coming in for their annual meeting, she would constantly tell me how terrible they are. Turns out they were some of the sweetest owners within the company. 4. When I gave a tour to the board members to show them the changes since their last visit, and to just do an overall property walk, I got yelled at for pointing out some of the bad things with the property, uneven decks, improper screws, etc. 5. She would ask maintenance to do one thing, and then later she would turn around and blow up on them for doing the exact thing she asked. She would then claim she never told them to do such a thing. There was one time she asked me to start a project proposal to replace the decking on a few of the buildings. I did exactly that, getting approximate prices, determining a schedule for how long each step of the project would take, and the overall plan. I brought it to her within a few days, and was promptly told that I did that for nothing, and she wasn't going to look at it. 6. If I or another front desk agent were on the phone for more than 0.2 seconds with a guest, she would loudly tell us to hang up on them. 7. She liked to mask her racism as jokes. The front desk would tell, even though it was just her and they were 100% not jokes. She just liked to judge people based off their skin color. Example, and I'm paraphrasing, "I just know that they are here to destroy the place and do drugs. It's what they all do," referring to black guests. 8. She demanded to see text messages on my phone that did not involve her whatsoever. That was actually on my last day, so after she blew up at me for not showing her, she told me to leave early and never set foot back on the grounds. 9. She physically assaulted one of the front desk agents. He was on the phone with a guest that wanted to speak with the GM. When he told the GM guest wanted to speak with her, she proceeded to push him out of his chair. Mind you, this front desk agent is an older gentleman with health issues. He walked out that day, but did come back later in the week. I also want to say, with this to show how terrible the company is, they did nothing. GM's boss was completely aware of what happened, front desk agent called him, threatening to sue, and acted as if that was completely normal. Nothing ever came of this. 10. Shortly before GM quit, she was being contacted by HR for being racist towards one of the other front desk agents. From the sounds of it, they weren't going to do anything about it, but the stress made her leave. 11. I was always nice to our timeshare marketers. If they got people to go on tours when their front desk would make additional money on their paychecks, and the resort would get more money, I would do everything I could to try to make their lives easier if I could, but GM had different ideas. She would loudly yell at the marketers in front of guests, contradict their information even if it was correct, and would try to set them up for failure. Mind you, she made money off their tours also. There is also much more to her. I could probably write a whole book about my short experience at that property. I just wanted you guys to get an idea of what I went through, so you guys can be mad with me. Also, take this post as a warning: never work in timeshare. 3. This is more of a rant, so I'm sorry if it seems all over the place. I would love to hear your similar experiences. This man came to my hotel twice already. First time while I was doing his checkout, he tried to convince me to go out with him. I told him I can't, and gave more than enough reasons not to. After he left, he called the hotel multiple times that day, and the days after to speak with me, to know if I would change my mind before he leaves my country. The second time he stayed with us, I was not working. He asked my co-workers for my schedule. Thankfully, nobody gave him any info. I worked just a couple of days while he was there. The first day, he was hours at the front desk. He even demanded a firm handshake so he could touch my hands. I hate it. The second day, same thing, but he knew it was the last day he was going to see me, so he tried hard to convince me to go out with him again. He wouldn't accept any of my reasons not to. He tried to compliment my looks, then my intelligence, then he tried to say he was disappointed with me. It was like he was trying everything in his negotiations book. He even said, "Was this all a lie to you? Are you telling me we don't have a special connection? Are you like this with everyone?" I'm sure if someone heard him, they would think I'm his girlfriend, and I was caught cheating. Because nothing worked, he decided to be very rude to me, demanding free stuff like a late checkout or even another room for free that he could use for a day. That was especially funny, because the conversation literally went like, "Can you show me the city? No. Can we have a coffee? No. Can we have dinner? No. Can I have a free late checkout? No, the hotel is You only say no to me." Crazy dude, if you get to hear this, I want to let you know that I think you are a coward and that you would never speak with me like that if I wasn't working and could speak freely. It's pathetic. 4. This story is from a couple of months ago. Maybe like 5 months ago, give or take. For background information, I work at a property that used to be filled to the brim with military due to our location during a certain crisis. In my 2 years with this property, I've seen multiple military groups come in and out due to contracts between the hotel and the housing group that's with the military. And everyone I have met in these groups has been pretty cool and created good relationships with the staff and guests that stay weekly as well. So I always work the PM shift of 3 to 11, and I'm sure most are aware at around 5 p.m., sometimes even earlier, most managers are gone for the day and can sometimes be hard to reach since they are off at home or elsewhere. We had recently gotten a new group of military, and everyone that came in was young, enlisted, early 20s or freshly 20. This group was a bit rowdy and would constantly get in trouble compared to the other groups that were filled with older officers and enlisted. This hell of a night started as normal. Wasn't too busy, but it was no dick around all day either. Went through the normal check-ins of regulars and occasional dicks of the day, who just throw their ID and credit card at you, but nothing too crazy. At around 8 or 9 p.m., a guest that stays weekly had gone outside for his usual smoking time, and to call his wife. Not even 5 minutes later, you hear a car speeding in the back of the hotel, and have a monster crash. The same guest came running in and said there was a crash and then a loud boom, which was followed by electricity that rode from one phone pole to another, just like in the movies, and blew up a transformer. In the 5-second span of him telling me all this, power in the hotel goes out, and our emergency lights kick on. First thing I do is call one of the managers and our engineer on duty, so he can check for guests in the elevators. Of course, the manager doesn't answer the first time. There was no need to call the police because the other guest had already called them, and they showed up minutes later for the crash scene. Luckily, no one was in the elevator, so our only worry was gone, and most of the arrivals had arrived earlier, so there was only like 10 left. Manager answered and sent me photos of our arrival list and in-house guests. By this point, it's been 20 to 30 minutes, so the GM sends all the kitchen and bar staff home for the night, and we also found out that some guy was drunk driving and crashed his brand new Raptor in the pole out back that caused the transformer to blow up. Another guest was out back when it happened and saw a young black man stumble out of the truck and dart in the hotel's back entrance towards the stairs. Guest told the cops what he saw, so they began asking if we know anyone with the description, and to no surprise, we can't, since the description is a quarter of our guests. Then the sheriff walks in with firefighters, and they double-check the elevators, and the sheriff stays at the front desk with me, while he gets word back about who the truck belongs to. As he's waiting for another military guest who is an officer, shows up, and goes straight over to the sheriff to ask if there's anything he can do to help, that he rushed over from his workout once he heard what happened. This military officer is a fit black male and looks pretty young for his age, and all our staff love him. The sheriff, just seeing him all sweaty and fitting the description, changes his whole demeanor and asks him to step back and places his hand on his taser and calls in that he found the suspect. This upset the military officer and he's telling the sheriff to calm down, but he's still in arrest mode. Luckily, one of my buddies, another employee, was with us when it was going on, so we both spoke up for the man and got in the way between the two to shield him. The sheriff backed off once we vouched for him, and then they finally gave us the name for who the truck belonged to. Give the sheriff the room number, and him and the two groups of cops go up both sets of stairs to the room with our head engineer to arrest the guy. When they come down with the guy, his lip was swollen like a balloon and face was covered in blood and was very swollen. The engineer came down and said his bedsheets were soaked with blood, and he tried to hide his bloody clothes from the accident. Power was still out, and most of the arrivals were understanding about the situation and were okay with being escorted by one of our employees, so they can enter the room since the locks are battery-powered, so our master keys still work. Finally, the cherry on top, a Karen guest arrived and threw a fit and started demanding a new room because she doesn't want to take the stairs to the second floor. I can't change her room, as I'm just going off reports sent from the manager of clean and empty rooms, and she was already on the lowest floor we had available. All in all, it was a pretty stressful night without power for 3 hours, and the rest of the week was a headache, because our cable box was also blowing up, so no TVs were working. 5. Good day to all of you. For some context, I work at a mid-sized hotel in a small but very touristy place. During the off-season, we have a lot of groups coming here. This one group was mostly high school kids and a handful of teachers, and I was working audit and PM shifts while they were here. To be honest, I kind of expected high schoolers to cause a bit of mischief, but was stunned to see a fully grown man who's responsible for 30-plus kids make a scene over a flagon of beer. Just want to mention that the kids were actually quite nice. They did, however, try to climb over a balcony to another room, for which they very nicely apologized and thankfully didn't get hurt. Now back to the invasive species this man was. I was working night audit and was doing my usual tasks. This was somewhere around midnight, and I saw a group of adults sitting in the lobby at the bar and hanging out. Didn't pay too much attention to them because they were quiet and were just goofing around on their off-duty. Then I noticed one of them was missing and heard some noise from the lobby bar. I went to go check what was going on, and I saw one of them was pouring himself a flagon of beer, or at least trying to. He looked at me, and I just kept staring at him until he went back. He got back to his seat after our stare down, and 5 minutes later he came over to the desk and started talking to me. "You pour me a beer?" "No, sir. The bar closes at 11 p.m.
"But we will pay you."
"I'm sorry, but I'm an FDA, not a bartender, and the bar is closed for the day."
"But it's not a big deal. It's just one beer. The guest is king. You can't do that for a guest."
"No, sir, I cannot." Then he just walked away to his friends and started ranting about me in a foreign language, which I speak.
"Nah, the dude doesn't want to serve a guest. He just won't budge."
And called me useless. I was just thinking to myself, what the hell? 15 minutes later, the beer crusader comes back.
"Please just serve me one beer. Here's $5.
Speaking in his language now, I say, "No, I won't, sir. I'm sorry." For some reason, he kept saying the guest is king after my responses. A bit flustered, he then says,
"And what if I pour myself a drink?"
"I will call security."
Okay.
And he goes to his room. His face was priceless, though. I am just shocked that a full-grown man who is responsible for a lot of children could not take no for an answer over a flagon of beer. In the end, the group came over to pay for their tabs. The drinks can be put on the hotel receipt, and asked me where they can get this drunk a can of beer. And I responded that the shop was closed, but they can buy them tomorrow and hang around on the terrace sofa, just not inside. All of them were nice and wished me good night. I don't know, maybe me switching to his language was a bit unprofessional, but it was funny to his friends at least. Hellfreezer's note, not unprofessional in the least. If anything, you were providing excellent customer service by communicating with the customer in the clearest, most concise manner available, which was his language, just to ensure there would be no confusion. And I must say, I'm quite impressed that you didn't contact his employer and let them know that this man who was responsible for children was trying to get drunk. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to COAHW. That's Confessions of a Hotel Worker, episode 154. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Before you go, please do hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. If you have subscribed, don't touch the subscribe button. We don't want you to do that. Just back away, real slowly. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can do that a few ways. You can hit that membership button and join there. We have 3 different tiers you can choose from. If you don't like the tier system, you can pledge what you like by joining us on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. There's also a merchandise store on Teespring, also linked in the description. There's a Discord server just for fun. And then there is tips. You can leave a tip by clicking on the heart with the $sign underneath the video. That is never and will not ever be required, because only dicks do that sort of thing. But I appreciate the help if you choose to give it. Okay. There's no other business today, so let's move along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question is, what's your favorite vegetable that's not green? See, if it was green, I'd probably say broccoli, I think, is my favorite vegetable. Although, actually, I am quite fond of cucumber. I guess with broccoli is one I would cook, cucumber is one I wouldn't cook. But non-green vegetable, that's a bit tougher. I'm going to go with carrots, though, because I do like my carrots in many, many forms. Let me know what you think in a comment below, and before we go, I'm going to take a look at the answer of the day from a previous video. And today's answer comes from COAHW 153. And I think this was about what was the last book you read. And today's answer comes from Miss Cat. For the most recent book that I've read and finished was The Prisoner's Throne by Holly Black. To be honest, I was more of a fan of the previous installments for the Folk of the Air series, but nonetheless, I had enjoyed the book. But I'm currently reading The Sea of Monsters by Rick Riordan, and I absolutely love reading it. It's a goddamn travesty that it's taken me this long to read this series. As a child, I had many friends who read the books, and they frequently talked about them in front of me. Thank you very much for your answer, Miss Cat. And with that, I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.